Keighley, 45 and a half years old. I'm an accountant. I enjoy playing trombone and euphonium in various bands. I also enjoy trying to do silly things to make people happy. People's happiness is important to me. What do I dislike more than anything else? Photos, videos, recordings of me, and public speaking. The official diagnosis is bipolar 2 disorder, which means it is an illness that is typified by hypomania and depression. Personally, I prefer to call it manic depression, but we'll come on to that later in the interview, I believe. My first symptoms, really my first crisis, which is when it all became obvious, was in 1996. So 1996 was the first crisis, and that's at the age of 17, which is a normal time for the symptoms of bipolar to show. My diagnosis was in 2009, September 2009. That's a period of 13 years after I first exhibited symptoms. 13 years seems like a long time, but that is a fairly standard time between first development of symptoms and final diagnosis. Major crises. I had a major crisis in 1996. I had a major crisis in around 2010, December, and I had one around 2 months ago, which I'm currently in recovery from. I've never really had a manic episode. Manic episodes are typified by full psychosis. I've only had sort of partial psychosis during my lifetime. The longest period of hypomania, which is where you don't go into the full psychosis, that was about 6 months in 2009, and that went from about April through to the end of September of that year. Longest period of depression. Depression generally is longer than the manic periods. I've had the longest period of depression was 18 months. That was 2011 to 2012. And realistically, it took around 5 years for me to be fully recovered from that. Longest mixed state. I think I ought to just explain what I feel a mixed state is. A mixed state is where you are both showing signs of hypomania, mania, and you are also showing signs of depression at the same time. I am currently in a mixed state. I have been in a mixed state for nearly 4 months now, so the longest period is as I'm counting. Yes, I take medication. I take various medication for bipolar. The principal drug that I take is lithium. Lithium is by far the preferred drug for bipolar. It is a very good mood stabiliser. I've been taking that for 13 years. It has been around since the 70s, so it's tried and tested. Obviously with lithium you need to have regular blood tests to ensure your levels are okay and that you aren't in the process of liver toxicity through lithium toxicity. As with many people who have bipolar, I take additional supplementary medication. I take quetiapine, which is an antipsychotic medication. I take pregabalin, which is not necessarily an antipsychotic medication, but it does have antipsychotic properties. And I also take escitalopram, and escitalopram is an antidepressant and an anti-anxiety drug. I've had various talking therapies. I've had some that are very, very good and some that weren't quite so good. I can certainly recall my tree therapist. I think we might get onto that in greater detail in the full interview. I have had CBT. CBT was not necessarily beneficial for me because it is a targeted therapy, but I have also had various types of psychotherapy, and I have seen 2 psychiatrists throughout the course of my ongoing treatment. What percentage of my life have I been stable? I would put a figure of about 95% on that. However, and that includes stable time while medicated. However, of the unstable 5%, I would say probably 2% of that time was completely unmedicated. So we're probably talking closer to 97%. I think it's important to talk about that because a lot of people will think, oh, someone has a mental illness and that person is unstable 95% of the time. It's the other way around. Why do I want to talk about this today? Well, there are 3 main reasons. The first reason is awareness to the general public. I still feel like when I tell people that I have bipolar, I still feel like someone from the 1980s or 1990s who is telling people that they are gay or bisexual. It is still a taboo. There is still a lot of shame. A recent survey suggests that over 50% of people are still ashamed of their mental health, of their mental illness, and over 50% of people still find mental illness is shameful, and that's asking sufferers and asking general public alike. It isn't talked about enough, and the treatments out there are not good enough. The second reason for talking about it is I want to talk about it for me. I am currently in recovery. It would be good for me to not only be able to look back at this in a week, a month's time, but to maybe be able to look back at it in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, to see what my current state is. And the third reason, and probably the primary reason, is I'm doing it for people that I know. And I'm doing it for those that over the years have gone through this with me, possibly without knowledge of what bipolar is, certainly know how it affects me. There are people that obviously over the years have been hurt. There are people that have stood by me through thick and thin. And there are those who have experienced the darker side on receiving unprompted messages or contact or whatever at times when I'm trying to reach out to people. I basically want, through the whole of this, awareness, not just for people I know, but also for general